And then finally, the Mega Community book, I'm going to select chapters for you and post them, is very, very substantially, let's put it this way, it's the new wave. I currently myself have won a grant from the Department of Labor on this concept because it really says that given what we've talked about, the kinds of things that government and business want to do together, especially if they're focused on solving the problems that we all think need to be solved, are only going to happen with a structure, a new governance structure that places government, business, and nonprofit in a decision-making authority over a region, an entity, or a project. His focus an awful lot is on infrastructure, crumbling bridges, electric power plants, roads that have to be rebuilt, subways and the like. Government doesn't have the money. Business doesn't have the equities. They fight over issues like labor contracts and union contracts and the like, and yet only when they come together as a single organizational entity can we even hope to have those things worked out. And Garinger, in the book Mega Communities, the Aspen Institute, and Bill Clinton, who was part of the project, found a role for the nonprofit organization. The nonprofit, which is neither government nor business. Nonprofits typically like to have an agenda that's similar to government. They do things that produce outcomes in the public service, but not similar to business. They don't make a profit. Their funding comes through grants or government pay, and their success is determined on whether or not they meet their objectives, not whether they make money. In fact, they can't make money. And Garinger believes that the nonprofit is going to be the entity that permits government and business to work together, the coordinating entity, but the one that holds the plans and the agenda. It's a marvelous book. I will select pages and give them to you. I haven't done that yet because the various machines around my office and my home are not working correctly. I'm going to try and do it tomorrow, which will be Wednesday morning, and post them for both classes. Bottom line, there really are 4 areas of government and business relations that I would really want us to focus on in this class, and I'd like you to be able to speak to those 4 areas and where things that you read in the book fit into. First of all, government creates an environment that either expands or can restrict business. It's a relationship with business right now. Is that through its monetary policy, through its social policy, through funding enhancements, through special grants, targeted monies, government has the ability to make it easy for business to make money and prosper, or hard. And that's a very complicated issue, and awful lot has to do with the extent to which the government wants and needs the economy to be rapidly growing, heating up, as they say, or suppressed because of potential inflationary pressures. But the bottom line is that a major relationship has to do with the give and take between business and government as to what the economic policy and the overall environment shall be. And that is a decision that ultimately government makes, but business is powerful enough that if it doesn't like it, it has ways to influence the government. That's one whole area. The second whole area is the one you know about primarily, is that government uses the private sector to task. It hires a tremendous number of government contractors in all sorts of fields, from defense to military. I'm sorry, they're both the same. Defense to military, to outer space exploration, to simple government employment, contractors working for federal agencies, huge research entities, and the like. And government does an awful lot with its dollars and cents to cause money to go into private business so that business can use its expertise to solve problems. That's a big category of government involvement. That's number 2. Number 3 has to do with Number 3 has to do with foreign policy. The government, the most American businesses these days are multinational. They're around the world. They find themselves in critical positions in significant areas of work in all countries and all societies around the world. But that ability is in large part dependent on an effective foreign policy that encourages that. Much of American foreign policy is based on providing business opportunities. And so an awful lot of relationship between business and government has to do with the extent that a specific kind of foreign policy is going to open up trade, let's say, to China or India or Africa or South America, or it's going to restrict it because of political concerns or economic concerns. embargoes and sanctions and the kinds of things we do for political reasons have a relatively serious effect on business and the money that people can make and the extent to which the economy prospers. And so while government makes those decisions, it generally has to take business interests into account in order to make them, in order to have them effectively implemented. Government also, as related to the Mega Community book, is moving on an era of collaboration with business, in which it neither directs nor demands, but in effect it causes, it works with business to cause certain outcomes to happen. Joint projects in research, joint projects in education, joint projects in healthcare, which you neither can do by themselves, and both have meaningful objectives, are a major part of what I call the government-business relationship. Another area is a little more difficult to put your arms around because it has to do more with social policy, but we would call it the redistribution of wealth, which government in Western societies is oftentimes focused on to curb the excesses of business. That's the ability of the desire of government to create programs that are going to move money from the top of society, where profits may seem to be excessive, to the bottom where the needs are, whether it's hunger, food, housing, welfare policies. The redistribution of income is a massive role of government in all Western democracies these days, and that is a significant area in which business and government, they do work together. They are clearly affected by the interaction of government business on those areas, but the extent to which the policies are going to be effective and successful depend on a very, very significant level of cooperation between the sectors in making that happen. Finally, there are areas where government and business compete. I think the obvious one are public and private universities, they're public and private healthcare centers, they're public and private roads these days. There's an awful lot of roads out here in which you have to pay tolls for. Some are operated by the state, some are operated by private entities. And at the harbor, there's public and private ports, and anywhere that the private sector can do something called privatization, it can take a government function and perhaps do it better. It is tending to get it, and that's something that is the basis of an awful lot of discussion as to whether that's wise or whether it's consistent with good government, but it is in fact true. Now, those are the areas that those 5 areas I just mentioned are I'm going to put them on a PowerPoint for you and get that out in the morning as well. Those are the 5 areas that I'd like us to focus on in analyzing the various governmental actions that we identify. I'd like us to be able to classify them into one of those 5 areas. When you see something in energy or healthcare, as you're going to write about, or cybercrime or immigration policy, I'd like you to be able to categorize it into one of those 5 categories. I'm going to try and work something with this video next week where I can have the PowerPoint up on the side as I'm talking. That'll make it a little bit easier. But for now, I'll send it to you tomorrow morning, and you can listen to this, and you can look at the PowerPoint, and you'll get a sense of the categories that I think are important for the class. It's a lot of stuff. You don't have to absorb it all at once. You can. The benefit of this, you can play it back 3 or 4 times if you can stand looking at me that much time to get it. You can stop and rewind if I've talked too fast, and you can hear it again. And that makes it a little bit easier. It's one reason I like the videos, because you can just take the notes that you think are important, and you can change your notes when you listen to it again. But you can look at that via the PowerPoint and look at that when you begin studying for your questions, for the review questions I'm going to give, and you have a pretty good handle on the framework that I like for the class, how the information fits into it, and what you have to know for the exam. A lot of stuff. Do not expect you to absorb all of what I just said, but I expect this to be an overview and a framework for the kinds of things you're going to do. The first requirement this week is to do the reading. Read the textbook first, and then I'll have the others posted for you tomorrow. And do try and read those, and try and read those with a view towards understanding the framework in which the stuff exists. And I will be posting a couple of questions tomorrow that make you try and understand a little bit more where some of these issues lie and the framework for resolving them. I think I've talked long enough today. I'd like to keep these to 15-20 minutes. because after that I know that you're out there getting something to eat or having some other issue in your life and the video is playing in the background by itself. I don't want to talk to nobody, I want to talk to you. So thank you, I'll be in touch. We'll keep working all week. I do this at the beginning of the week, but I'm going to be involved throughout the week in your discussions and your group work. So I'm going to reinforce the message. That's it. See you next week. Bye-bye.